Like Denbrock's name popping up on the Notre Dame offensive coordinator vacancy right now is a front runner. When you have guys like Bruce Feldman tweeting it out, Feldman's not making any type of social media post that he is not sourced on, that he is not checked on. That is a big-time reporter and a big-time newsmaker, or at least news reporter within college football. He's got really good sources. I'm not saying by any means that it's a done deal, but I'm saying that there's definitely some smoke to what's going on between Denbrock and Notre Dame if Bruce Feldman's talking about it from a national level. So we'll dip into that a little bit here.
He looks at his list and checks it twice.
Yeah, for sure. And he's got sources on both sides. He's got sources at LSU and at Notre Dame. I mean, he's as well connected from a national guy and someone who is in that position as you'll find. He's rarely wrong.
Trying to find him a new touchdown, Jesus.
I don't.
Can only go to church
know how
once
much,
a week.
I mean, from Mike Denbrock's standpoint,
what does he stand to gain from going to Notre Dame?
I would think, looking at it on paper, that this would be a pretty easy decision on whether or not to stay or to go. And in my opinion, it would be easy to stay, right? I mean, like, you're coming off of a season where you've got the Heisman Trophy, you've got the number one offense, you've got maybe the top receiver, maybe behind Harrison, the top, one of the top receivers in the draft, the best receiver in the game this season, another first round pick that you have on the resume, and I look at it in kind of a different lens of how much more can you accomplish, which way is there only one way to go from here if you're Denbrock?
It wouldn't be up.
Right. Like, I mean, you're not going to achieve more next season.
I mean, Notre Dame just got Riley Leonard in the portal, but I mean, I don't think Riley Leonard's a Heisman finalist or a winner next year anyway. So I don't know what Notre Dame has on the outside either. And I think
you would think that Notre Dame probably can talk to anybody that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's a call that when the phone rings, you pick it up. You take it.
But I'm just saying.
And he has ties there. I mean, he's coached there previously under Brian Kelly.
He's from there.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, which I think is a big deal in coaching, is especially when you get to
Louisiana.
Well, you get to the part of the career that these guys are in. I mean, specifically Denbrock, he's achieved a lot. I mean, he's most probably made his money. I mean, his money is probably right in the sense of, I mean, he's not really coaching for the money in, all of it being for that.
And if that were the case, then LSU was still in that mix because obviously they offered him an extension that didn't get approved by the Board of Supervisors. I saw Moscona put that on Twitter that it was on wasn't on the BOS docket 2 days after to get approved. So that's
it was set to be approved in February.
Right. They kicked it down kicked the can.
If this is and when I saw that and Moscona tweeted it, and I believe that to be factual. If that is one of the roadblocks, you can change that real quick.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if it's
just have a meeting tomorrow.
Hey, look, Denbrock needs to have his contract approved or he's leaving to go to Notre Dame.
Zoom meeting.
That thing is going to happen. So, I don't think that it ultimately will be the roadblock that halts this thing. I just think from Denbrock's standpoint that if Feldman's tweeting about it, it makes me believe that Denbrock's thinking about it.
Yeah.
So if he's thinking about it, I think the pros and cons of it is that if you're looking at LSU's, in my opinion, going to reload on the number one offense in the country.
Yeah.
For the first, my first selling point would be you're going to have this offensive line that might be the best in the country again. They're a Joe Moore Award of finalist this season. I think next year they're going to be better.
Yeah.
And I know that the news came out that Charles Turner accepted his Senior Bowl invite, and he'll be going to Mobile. And I don't mean this with any disrespect. Turner had a really nice LSU career, and he'll have the opportunity to play at the next level. I think he'll have a shot. He'll be in training camp somewhere next year. But I know from speaking to some people that are around and close and on the staff that they love DJ Chester. And if now's the time, then now's the time. They've got no problem with that, of handing over the reins to a young, athletic Chester who showed some really good signs this year in his freshman season, that he can step in and carry the load, be a quality, replacement for a multi-year starter and a captain in Charles Turner. So the offensive line, first and foremost, for me, LSU's standpoint, would be a huge selling point to Denbrock from an offensive standpoint, or if he was to move on, whoever would be next. And I would think that you have the guy in-house in Joe Sloan would be the first name that would come to mind for me. And I think, first off, Sloan he has earned every opportunity he is going to get. And whether it's this year or next season, Joe Sloan is on a short list of offensive coordinators to keep an eye on for a lot of universities out there. A lot of people are watching Sloan, and only what happened to Jaden Daniels this season just brightened the spotlight of what's going on in Baton Rouge with Sloan in that room. So, I think LSU is, one of the priorities on the coaching staff is how do you keep him? Because Sloan is a guy, we've talked about it at times where from a coaching standpoint, you're looking for guys that can win in the living room and develop on the practice field and put guys out on Saturday that are producing and then go out and sell that over and over and over again. And since Joe Sloan's been in Baton Rouge, the sales pitch that he's been able to cultivate of not only the relationships that he's built with guys like Bryce Underwood, who's set to announce on January 6th as the number one quarterback in the 2025 cycle, 2024 cycle. 2025 cycle? Bryce Underwood?
2025.
Yeah, 2025 cycle. But he's also been able to develop on the field Jaden Daniels. I mean, if you look at Daniels' development from his junior to his senior season, throw the awards out. Just look on the field of the quality of play and how much better he got. I mean, at some point you got to credit the coaching. And Denbrock deserves credit and Kelly deserves credit, but, granularly, Joe Sloan is the guy that's with him every single day, every single meeting, every single video clip, every single breakdown. Joe Sloan's sitting on his hip. So, I think there's a big emphasis on how do you, look, I'm not saying by any, I think that they're fighting to keep Denbrock. Obviously with the contract news a couple of weeks ago of an extension and a raise, that tells you that they're all in on Denbrock, and how can't you be? He's leading the number one offensive attack with the Heisman Trophy winner. But if in fact he is thinking about it, with Bruce Feldman tweeting about it, tells me that there's some smoke. I don't think LSU would have to look that far to find the next guy. I think Sloan's sitting in-house and, he's earned his time, his stripe, his opportunity to be in line for it at least, or, have a chance at it. So it'll be interesting. I think the next 48 hours will be interesting to watch here on what happens there, because I don't think Notre Dame's going to sit on this, right? I mean,
the cat's out the bag.
They got to get this thing filled.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Does this not remind you of almost the inverse of a Joe Brady, Steve Ensminger situation? I put it on the poll. If you could only have one, Mike Denbrock or Joe Sloan, it feels like LSU fans would be more inclined to keep Joe Sloan than Mike Denbrock, which is crazy considering the year you had. But it feels like the year with Ensminger and Brady, where Ensminger's calling the plays. But the mastermind is Brady. If you could keep one, which one would you have? And it kind of feels like that same situation where everybody almost always wants to quote-unquote backup quarterback. I mean, you saw it with Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels, where it's the shiniest thing in the room. It's like, but the potential. And obviously, if you're LSU, you want to keep things status quo. But if Denbrock leaves, it feels like it would be promote Sloan, and then you almost don't have to keep kicking the can down the road on what you kind of do with Sloan. When do we promote him? When do you what do you do with him to keep him at LSU? Because if that's the secret sauce, that might be the most important man in the room.
Well, I mean, when
because I don't know how much he's done with play calling.
He's had some emphasis on it,
right? And I know he did it at Louisiana Tech. I was just
right.
talking about this year. It wasn't the same as you saw Brady in the booth where he's barking into the microphone. You didn't see that with Sloan. It was a lot of development at the quarterback position as opposed to, 3rd and 8. Oh, he's our third down guy.
Right. No, I think that Joe Sloan definitely had his hand on play calling situations, and not that he was making any in-game calls. I'm not saying that by any means. I think that he was referenced, and throughout the week, he's a guy that has a big voice.
Fingerprints are on it.
He's a guy that when he speaks, people listen. And I from the weight of the staff and the amount that Joe Sloan carries, it's not just on the field development where he checks a lot of the boxes, all the boxes, right? I mean, from the development of his crew and his room, there's not a lot to complain or push back on. I mean, he's got the Heisman Trophy winner and one of the biggest stories in college football over the last 2 years. He's got guys that are in line of veteran leadership like Garrett Nussmeier. He's got guys coming in, like Ricky Collins and Colin Hurley, and, possibly going to get commits from top quarterback prospects like Bryce Underwood over the next couple of weeks. I mean, the quarterback room is on fire. And Joe Sloan's sitting in the driver's seat. And he's one of those guys that, when you're looking for coaches, can they win in the living room? Can they win in the meeting room? And can they develop on the field and get the production on Saturdays? Sloan is doing all of that. So it's going to be interesting how this next couple of days works with the offensive coordinator, because, like I said, and I've said it a couple of times in the first hour, I think if Bruce Feldman's talking about it, something's going on. I'm not saying it's done. I'm not saying that it's close to done. I mean, I don't know, but there's some smoke here if you're just, if Feldman's saying it, he's not just kind of tweeting rumors. He's not saying it for fun.
And this all stems from the former Notre Dame offensive coordinator Gerard Parker being hired at Troy, and this was written in December 18th, so the wheels have been in motion for only a few days. But I'd imagine that, at least publicly, Notre Dame probably does business the same way LSU does, where it's, hey, Coach Parker let Notre Dame know. So this has been probably, we're all looking at Texas A&M trying to hire Denbrock. This could have been a situation in which his name is going to be floated out for multiple OC jobs. Let's try to get him signed, sealed, delivered to LSU. But I would imagine with the ties that they have at Notre Dame that this wasn't a surprise to people in the LSU building.
No.
So that's why, we all just assumed A&M because it was reported on. This is who they wanted first. But after Parker gets hired by Troy, then you have Missouri's Missouri's offensive coordinator's name is in the bucket for Notre Dame OC. So it's a lot of moving factors. It's not like Denbrock's the only candidate, I guess,
right.
What I'm trying to say.
And look, from Denbrock's stock standpoint, if you're his agent, now is the time to shop him.
This wins the press conference.
I mean, well, not only that, I mean, even if he's
leverage.
even if he's not interested in Notre Dame, to the public, he's interested in Notre Dame.
Right.
He wants to make his bosses think that he could go, and if you're not going to approve that contract until February, well,
we'll talk again in February.
Yeah, we need it now. So, Denbrock has a ton of leverage. He's got a ton of negotiating power, and from a stock standpoint, this is as high as his stock has ever been. And he's had some successful runs. He's had really good seasons. Cincinnati, Notre Dame, he's done good things. He's never done anything as good as what he's just coming off of ripping off records and yards and awards. One of the first things he's talking about on interviews, if he's talking to Notre Dame, is he's talking about the Heisman Trophy winner.
And the Broyles.
And he's talking about Malik Neighbors. And he's talking about Brian Thomas. I mean, he's capitalizing off of LSU just like LSU's capitalizing off the season. So, I mean.
And for those that, if you think it would be the Chicken Little and it would be the end of the world if Denbrock left, I think a lot of the offensive production you can look at and say, Jaden Daniels is out there doing his thing. Like
the receivers are out there doing their thing.
Right. Like a lot of it, I mean, I'm not complaining about Denbrock to any extent, but I'm just saying a lot of that came from, I don't want to say broken plays, but extended plays from what you saw from Jaden Daniels. It wasn't exactly on schedule and how the offense was choreographed to go down the field like you saw like a Sean McVay yesterday where it's like these first 15, you're about to be in hell. And it was Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman Trophy with his, and that's what happens when you have a dual threat quarterback. Like, I can hit you with both, and Denbrock putting Jaden in that situation to be able to make those plays is where he gets the credit. But I'm just saying, a lot of that was roll the ball out. I don't have to do a lot. Look at the talent.
Was it last year that the Rams tried to hire Cortez Hankton as their offensive coordinator?
Yes.
Was it last year? Yeah, I mean, it had to have been because Hankton he's only been here 2 years.
You have offensive minds in the room, regardless of who it is.
And I think his name is being kicked around in a lot of circles.
Right.
I believe it came up for his alma mater, Texas Southern.
For the head coaching job.
They may have got it filled since.
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, I think they did fill it.
Because
But
they didn't want to.
The point is people are talking about it.
His name's out there.
His name is out there, and it's always going to be because of the same thing that Mike Denbrock is experiencing. I mean, everybody is talking about LSU's offense, right? Whether it's Jaden Daniels going in the draft, whether it's Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas playing in the bowl game, whether it's Logan Diggs coming back or going. People are talking about LSU's to the production on the field, right? And I mean, if you're in charge of putting an offense together, well, I mean, you're looking at the best. And, all these guys are going to get opportunities from that. If not, opportunities, at least the opportunity at leverage to get more money or more security out of their current situation.